10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everybody, I'm sorry for, sounds like we got a little static in the line. I don't know where that's coming from. Might be from the weather, could be from a few things. And I apologize, we started a little bit late. Life happens and I just was thrown off by time. So I apologize about that. We try never to have that happen, but life does happen to us all, right? So I'm here with you today and I hope everyone is having a good time and we're enjoying ourselves. I am in serious need of coffee, just sleep deprivation, just trying to keep up with everything that's been going on. It's been one crazy week. I mean, a seriously crazy week. And you wouldn't expect it to be so crazy. But, then again, it's politics. These things happen. Especially when we start considering the fact that, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of my, let's call her, I wouldn't call her favorite, but a common source that I go back to on a regular basis to talk about and discuss things with. She's just the gift that just never ends for a pundit. She's constantly out there giving us reasons to talk about what she's trying to do or what she thinks she's trying to do. And perhaps I should have a poll out there and ask people what you think about the Green New Deal. And I've got to say, it's just ridiculous. It is a dumb idea. If you've actually read the bills, if you actually look at what they're proposing, this is probably one of the silliest things I've ever heard. And I have to say that because it is one of the silliest things I've ever heard. It's just a bad policy at every step. And I don't know how many people realize how bad this is. It's not just, this isn't good law. This is devastatingly bad law. This is the kind of law that hurts more people than it could ever possibly help. This is the kind of law that is useless other than as a talking point for somebody's reelection. Or let's say the 2020 presidential campaign. That's what it's there for. That's why we see all of the Democratic presidential candidates are lining up to be behind this Green New Deal because they think this will get young voters involved. Because young voters have been told, we have to save the planet. The planet is dying. The planet's going to end. My God, everything's over. Now, being someone who's a little bit older at 50, having heard these global crises before, and I have, and it's not the first time that I've heard that, they've said the world's going to end and things are going to be terrible. I mean, I believe it was Al Gore who mentioned that by this point, we'd be 5 years into being underwater in New York State. Okay, that we'd be flooded, New York City wouldn't exist, and Florida would be gone because of global warming, and the polar ice caps would be gone, and we'd all be flooded, and the world would have ended. And that was like 5 years ago. We were supposed to have that. And then there was the threat of global cooling, and the entire planet would go into a new ice age, and we'd have a sheet of ice by now. This is from the 70s or 80s. That we were going to have a sheet of ice that was going to cover all of upstate New York and half of, the United States and Canada and be across the globe, and we'd all be under a sheet of ice and the planet would be freezing because of climate change or because of the environment and what we're doing with it. So we hear this all the time. Roughly about every 10 years, there's this new, oh my God, the world is going to end unless. And it's been a constant cry. In my entire 50 years on the planet, there's been at least 4 different versions of this where it's either freezing or it's burning or it's some kind of extremity in weather. And we're absolutely going to die unless we absolutely change everything tomorrow. And it never happens. Now, the law of averages in the favor of scientists in that if they keep saying it, eventually they will probably be right. Kind of like the preachers who say that the world's going to end. Eventually, one of these guys are going to get it right, and the world will end at some point, and they'll finally be correct in their doomsday predictions. I don't put a lot of faith in that. Obviously, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez does. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being in favor of global warming is one thing. That's fine. That's her opinion. She may believe it more than I do, and I don't care. She can do that. Here's where it makes the difference. As a legislator, when she starts saying that the Green New Deal, and she gave us a bill to look over, mind you, I don't know if we got lucky that I was able to keep a copy because, as I understand, every copy of the deal has been removed from the internet. So we can't see them anywhere. But we do have this version that I was able to, I saved it, from the NPR, which is incomplete. I'll give you that. So it's not a complete version. But what we can see on this version is some of the things that it says, like, where's the good parts? Now, it makes all these claims that you have absolutely no way of justifying or proving. This is a doomsday promise. She's talking about how that human activity is the dominant cause of change of the weather. Excuse me, the weather changes every day. Human beings have nothing to do with that. And as much as she would like it to be about human beings, and I would too, can't be that arrogant. I'm not that arrogant. Human beings don't make the difference. The weather's going to change no matter what. The weather has changed no matter what. And the weather continues to change. The planet has been in a complete desert. It has been a complete ice ball about 27 times. Is it a slow process? Absolutely. Did that process stop the moment that human beings were born on the planet of Earth? No. Does that process continue? Absolutely. Are we in the middle of that process? Absolutely. We've been on the planet, if you had a clock that was 24 hours, we've been on the planet, 5 seconds? I mean, we literally haven't been here long. We've barely shown up. And the process is going on. So she's a bit arrogant there. No surprise. But let's see what else she says in this bill that has been hidden from the public because it is toxic. It is toxic. So she assumes that the rate of change is going to cause the sea levels to rise. Again, New York City is going to flood because the polar ice caps are going to melt. We've heard that before. She's just restating it. She decides to mention that because if that were to happen, mass migration would change everything. Well, yes, it would change everything in the world. England would flood. So would a good portion of France, Portugal, Spain. The United States is not the only ones who have a coastline. It would affect everyone. It would have an impact on everyone in the globe moving inland. Yeah, unless you won't think you're Aquaman or you're from Waterworld with Kevin Costner, you're going to go inland. So that's the normal thing. And she says it's going to cost $500 billion in lost annual economic output. I guarantee you that if you're talking about New York being completely flooded, if you're talking about Florida completely flooding over, the Central America flooding over, you're talking about Spain and Portugal and England, just disappearing, and some of the Hawaiian islands disappearing. Yeah, I think it's going to cost more than $500 billion. I think it's going to disrupt the rest of the world as well. So that's a little silly on her part. I mean, this is what happens when you actually logically look at the things that these people are saying. It starts going, well, that's a stupid statement. That's silly. You're just being extreme for the sensation of it. But if I actually pay attention to what you said, that's dumb. Of course it's going to cost. People are going to move. What do you think? They're going to stay where the cities are flooding? No, of course not. Of course people are going to move. Of course it's going to disrupt the world, not just the United States. It's so United States centric, as if no other place. Canada will not flood if the polar ice caps melt and the ice melts and the sea rises up. Let's be honest, folks. Of course it will. This is ridiculous stuff. So I'm going to skip a little bit here because it's just absolutely ridiculous. And this is, again, the NPR version. I'm not sure that this is still available, but I still have it available on my system. She's talking about, the risk of damage is like $1 trillion. It's come on, it's global. It's the entire world. Nations would be disappearing off the face of the earth. It's a lot bigger than whether it's $1 trillion or not for America. Let's be honest. And she's not being honest about this at all. So the things that really get me on this, and I'm just trying to find it, and I did a smaller podcast about this earlier in the week. The thing that gets me is she's combining into this idea that we have to make the environment better. We have to improve the environment. Okay, fantastic. We all want to live in a better environment. I can agree with that. But she's telling me that to be able to fix the environment, we have to create unions. What? What are you talking about? Why do we need a union to improve the climate? They're not connected. They're not connected. There is no connection between we must have more unions and everyone must join a union. That has nothing to do with the climate. It does not. I can have my business. You can have your business. You can grow a business and not be beholden to a union for no reason. Whatever happened to individual ownership? Whatever happened to entrepreneurs? Whatever happened to capitalism or freedom? There's the key word. Let's go with that. Whatever happened to freedom? I don't understand this. I like freedom. Do you like freedom? I think most people like freedom. But, there's a big surprising thought for you. Newsflash, not everyone wants to be in a union. A lot of people don't want to be in a union. Matter of fact, the unions are shrinking. Most people don't want to be in unions because unions aren't the be-all great thing that they are. They're just at this point. Now, if you're telling me in the 1950s, did unions have a purpose? Absolutely. 1930s, 40s, 50s, I agree with you. In 2019, do unions have a purpose? Not really. A union is just another corporation, quite honestly. They're just another corporation out to make a profit. Their profit happens to come from having large numbers of people within its under its umbrella, where it collects a large amount of dues, whether the people want to pay it or not, to be able to allow it to do what it wants, whether the people who are in it want it or not. You don't get to have a choice in a union. The union wants to give its money to a bunch of Democrats, which they usually do, then that's fine. Even if you're a staunch Republican or a conservative or a libertarian, or you are independent and don't want to contribute to anybody, guess what? Your union's taking your money and doing that anyway. Whether you want to go and increase the prices of the products that you are making or selling because of your union, they're going to increase the price. Your price of your goods are going to go up, whether you like it or not. Unions are not the same thing as what they used to be. Unless, you know anyone, if you know any 9-year-olds that are going to factories to work for, 14 hours a day. I'm not aware of that happening in the United States anymore. But, if you do, please, there's a union. That's what they're there for. Let them stop that. I think they succeeded. But anyway, her point is, in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is that we need to have unions because unions will make America better somehow. I don't understand how. And it's going to make the weather better somehow. I don't know. she somehow connects, and this is another part of this here, she somehow connects that that there's a racial wealth divide. Okay, we all agree there is that, but somehow that has to do with global warming. I don't understand. What does that have to do with whether or not someone's successful or not? How people are working, the distribution of wealth, the way people work. I don't understand that. Gender, the earnings of people in gender is somehow affected by the weather. I don't understand that. Is she saying, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying that women can't work in warmer weather? So that's why they're not making as much money as men? Is she saying that if it's raining, women can't work and therefore they can't make as much money as men? Or is she saying that some dampness in the air is preventing women from being able to go to work and be as effective as men, because that's what she has in her bill? And this is the outline of the bill. This is the Green New Deal. And it says in there, gender earnings gap that results in women earning approximately 80% as much as men at the median. This is about climate change. The very next line is, whereas climate change, pollution, and environmental destruction have exacerbated systemic, racial, regional, and so-called environmental economic injustices. She's talking about social justice and women being incapable of doing the jobs that men are doing, and she's blaming it on the weather. I don't know any woman that will say they accept this. I ask any feminist that is out there right now, is there anyone, any feminist, anyone who says and will agree that because there is climate, that the weather changes every day, and because the weather changes every day, for the last 50 years that I've been alive, I can personally attest to the weather changes every day, and that women are incapable of doing the same job as men and therefore get paid less and work less because of the weather. I don't think there's a feminist out there that's going to agree with that, because it's a stupid idea. It is a stupid idea. I mean, when you actually stop and listen to what's in the Green New Deal, which I am reading off from NPR. So please don't tell me it's it's a Fox News, it's a Republican thing. Oh, no, you guys don't know. I'm reading NPR, where she had released it before it was removed, because it's stupid. That's why they removed it. They don't want people to hear and have to go, are you kidding me? You're saying racism is because of weather, that there's gender politics and gender issues because of the weather. Really? That's stupid. That is point blank stupid. It's not the most stupid thing I've heard in this, but it is one of the most stupid things I've heard in this. She says that somehow, that this is World War II. We've got to fight the weather that happens every day by nature for reasons that we do not completely understand and cannot completely predict. That we're going to fight that like the Nazis. I'm sorry, we fought the Nazis because they were Nazis. We fought in World War II because we knew what we were trying to do. We were trying to make people more free. Not put them in unions, not take away their rights, but make them more free and expand democracy around the world. Not to institute socialism, which was part of the Nazis and part of the Axis powers. Remember, you had the communists that were coming out of, who had been socialists, that came out of Russia, that was temporarily aligned with the Axis. We know that the brown shirts were the socialists. Matter of fact, they were the democratic socialists of Germany before they became the Nazis. We know that the brown shirts down in Italy, in Mussolini's troops, were also socialists. This is democratic socialism. So if you want to bring up World War II and fighting, we're talking about fighting socialism. That's what we went to war about, to fight socialists, the democratic socialists that were destroying the world. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I know, she's an economics genius. She got an economics degree, so she doesn't know history, doesn't understand that the democratic socialists that were in Germany and in Italy were the ones who created World War II because they were insane. But that's okay. Hey, Jeff O'Brien joined us, and that I see, and I'm happy to have you here with us. So I'm just talking about, Jeff, you may have missed it. I've been talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her Green New Deal that she's hidden from people because they removed it once people started doing what I'm doing right now and looking at it and saying, hey, did you read what it says? Because it says in here that women are the reason why women cannot get paid as much as men is because the weather changes. I don't know if you agree with that, Jeff. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't agree. I would imagine Tina is going to tell you that you're stupid if you say that. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as I just showed off of the NPR copy of the Green New Deal, it says that women can't make as much money because of global warming, which means the weather. So because the weather changes, women do not get paid as much as men, so we need to fight global warming. That's just stupid and ludicrous. But it went on, and I showed how she's comparing the Nazis, who were democratic socialists, and, guess what? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a democratic socialist. And so we should fight the weather that exists before we came here, will exist after us. We don't even understand what it is and how it works, but we got to fight it like it's World War II. I'm sorry, we were fighting for freedom, as I mentioned just before you got on, Jeff. And, listening to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tell us that we need to have unions. Yeah, she connected unions to the weather changing. How? What does the weather change have to? I will never understand that. But she thinks somehow that if we're all in unions, the weather won't change, or it'll not be the Armageddon of the planet. I don't understand. It makes no sense whatsoever. But these are her words, This is her bill, where she says it's going to be so much better. That the answer to fixing all of this, the $7 trillion, is to just print money. We can just print money and we'll pay for it all. We'll tax the rich and we'll just print money, which is stupid. Again, this is a stupid idea because again, I may not be as smart as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because I don't have a degree in economics. I don't have a degree in anything. But I think that if you increase if you just print money, you devalue that money to the extent that we saw in the Weimar republics, and we saw that in South America, in the banana republics, that if you just print money all day, assuming that you're going to just put that money out there and it's going to cover everything, the answer is that you're in fact going to just devalue your money. And it will take a wheelbarrow full of money to be able to buy a loaf of bread. It's happened before. It would happen again. I say this slower because it seems that having an economics degree somehow invalidates or removes the ability to think of the past or to understand basic economics. So I want to make sure it's clear to the economic genius of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because it makes no sense whatsoever that she just wants to print money to pay for all this. You can't. Not unless you want none of the money in America to make any sense, to be worth anything at all. And maybe she does. Maybe she hates America enough that she just wants to take away all of the money from everyone and devalue it so much that it's just monopoly paper and no one cares and it would be useless. And destroy the country and go for it. It wouldn't surprise me. Because remember, it was people like Bill Maher who said the Democrats need the economy to crash so that they can win a presidential election. That they need the economy to be devastated, to be in a recession or a depression, so that people, the average person, will feel pain so that they can win a political election. So if we're talking about printing $7 trillion worth of new money just to be able to pay for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's experiment about the environment, you know, and if it destroys the economy, she's perfectly happy because they'll win an election. Isn't that great? This is what the Democratic Party has come to. And I should say the progressives of the Democratic Party. Because for once I have to stick up for Nancy Pelosi here and say, she said, no, this is stupid. You know, Chuck Schumer, this is stupid. The only people who are going into this are the people who've been taught by other liberals over the years in the last generation, who the most recent generation of kids have grown up and they're saying, you know, you've been telling us all our lives, this is the way we're supposed to be if we're going to be a Democrat, that this is progressivism. And we're supposed to be these kind of hyper radical people that connect the change of weather with women not being able to work somehow. Doesn't make sense. And that having a union will solve all the issues of the planet, including the weather somehow. Doesn't really come together. Doesn't make any sense, but that answers everything. If we just become more progressive and we just be progressive Democrats, or in other words socialists, or in other words communists, if we just do that, everything will be fine. That's what they were taught in school. Obviously they weren't taught the Weimar incident or anything about South American 80s economics in economics courses, where they understand that if you just print money, the value of that money is devalued and useless. I don't know. I don't know. And I got to ask, did anyone notice the Democrats, the progressive wing of the Democrats, are so into this, 60 of them, 4 of them who are running for president, all jump on this. This is brilliant stuff. We love this. Yeah. And they're all into it. And yet, not one of them has stopped to think about the fact that they're willing to spend $7 trillion, almost double what the entire United States spends. They are adding more money than the United States spends in a year. They want to spend $7 trillion, which would double everyone's taxes by that itself. But here's the problem. They want to double your taxes, but they won't pay $5 billion for a wall. Did anyone notice that? They can't find $5 billion to build a wall, but they can spend $7 trillion to take away every single car in the United States. Oh, by the way, if you didn't realize that, that's the other thing that Alexandria Ocasio's deal, the Green New Deal, does. And it's a little bit further into the document. It's really not that long. Where is it? It's in here. I'm going to find it. But one of the things that you need to do is get rid of every single car in the United States. To be 100% empowered to derive from clean and renewable energy, you would need to get rid of every single car that everyone in the United States has right now. If your car is running on gas, then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hates your guts and wants to take away your car. Does that mean you get a new car? No. Remember, we're going to be devaluing the money, so you will never have enough money to buy a new car. I've been asked by several people, well, Mike, how do you get to work? They're going to build a high-speed train, and then you're going to take a bus and walk, or maybe ride a bicycle. Most likely walk. That's what you're going to do. Don't you feel good about the Green Deal? You get to lose your car, You get to lose your independence. You will not be able to just travel like you want to. No, no, no. You're going to have to walk everywhere. Or take a bus. Or high-speed transit. Really. By the way, they've been trying to build the high-speed transit 20, 30 years now. And I don't see any high-speed trains anywhere in the nation. They've been trying to get it on the Northeast forever. I don't see it yet, and you won't. Part of the reason is because in laying down new tracks for the trains, that to put in a high-speed rail would require that you must take away, that you have to destroy some of the environment. And, of course, the people who love the environment, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you can't do that. You can't destroy any of the environment. You can't disturb any squirrels and any trees to be able to improve anything. Whether it's the electrical grid or whether it's the train tracks, you can't do any of that. You can't disturb the animals there. So that means you can't build high-speed rail. And we've run into that problem over the last 30 years. So they want the high-speed rail so that they can take away your cars, but you can't build it by cutting down trees or disturbing any of the animals. Except that's what you have to do to build the new rail. It's kind of a loop. You notice this? It's broken. The system, their system is broken. This isn't even a circle. It's not even a spiral. I don't even know what it is. It's just broken because you can't do, you need to build a new train, but you can't do the things that would allow you to build a new train because you don't want us to do that either. So you can't do anything. That's why the Green New Deal is a big zero. It is meant not to do anything because even the things it says within itself destroys itself. You can't build the high-speed rail because you can't disturb the environment. And that's what it's in the Green New Deal. You can't disturb the environment. Well, then if you can't disturb the environment, how are you supposed to build a new electrical grid? How are you supposed to build a high-speed rail? You can't. It is not possible. By the way, she doesn't include in her $7 trillion, she's not including the electrical grid and the high-speed rail and over 76 million homes being retrofitted to be able to have renewable energy and retrofitting every single building in every single city and going out there and taking all of your cars and replacing some of them with buses, and some people might be able to afford an electrical car, and getting rid of the nuclear energy because she's not into nuclear energy, and growing 500,000 new wind towers to capture the wind energy, 500,000 of them, plus another 150,000 solar panel arrays, minimally. I mean, does anyone even notice this? Hi, Tina. Tina, I'm glad you are here. Tina, I have a question for you. Tina DeBella just joined us, folks, and I am happy about that. Tina, I got a question for you. Okay, Tina, I got a serious question for you. Are you ready? I hope you're ready. Tina, do you believe that the weather stops you from being able to go and get a job and that it makes you pay for less? And that's why you get paid less. Women get paid less money for doing the same job because of the weather. Do you agree with that? I got to ask a woman. She came on, and I know a lot of people watch the program, but I can't see you. But I do see her, and so I do want to find out what she thinks as a woman, because that's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says. That is exactly what she... Oh, she's laughing. Yeah, that would be a big fat no. She laughed, kind of like I did. And she said that's a no. No, Tina, the reason why I asked that, our favorite person, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, In her Green New Deal, before she removed it from the public so that you could read it, put in her bill that part of the reason why women get paid less is because, well, the weather changes. That's what she says. I came to work every day when it was below zero. I'm at work today with back pain. I do not doubt, and I know you work hard. That is not a question, Tina. But I got to tell you, it's for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She doesn't believe you. She thinks you can't possibly work when there's global warming going on. It's just not possible. So that's why she included it in her bill. I find it quite, I don't even have the words for it. But right now I'm trying to understand. I'm comparing. Democrats are saying that they are willing to trade $7 trillion in an experiment because, let's be honest, folks, this isn't settled fact. This isn't a known that this is actually going to work. She's going to trade $7 trillion, but will not be willing to spend $5 billion to build a wall. And we know walls work because walls stop some people and slow down others. Walls will slow down, at the least slow down, the amount of drugs coming into the United States. They will slow down, at least, some of the people who are entering the United States illegally. They will help to slow down the number of terrorists that might try to enter the United States from the South. These are facts. It would slow down the number of gang members and criminals, besides the criminals who are illegal aliens. It would slow down the number of gang members and those types of criminals from entering the United States. Would it stop it? Absolutely not. No one ever said that it's going to stop it. It is to slow it. Would it slow it down? Absolutely, factually, absolutely. And that's why there have been walls since before the Middle Ages. I mean, there's been 2,000 years of recorded history, and over 2,000 years of recorded history, there have been walls because they work. They work. It's not even it's not a question. Again, history, which it seems that some progressives have never read ever, or looked at art, or traveled to places and seen walls. They work. It's that simple. And today, 74 nations around the world have walls, and they work. So I don't understand that. But so they don't want to spend $5 billion for something we know will work, but they're willing to spend $7 trillion of other people's money on things that they have no idea if it's going to work, and things that have no sense to them whatsoever. What Tina says, and after laughing, she had to catch her breath. She also mentions that, but I thought the left said women could do everything, and also that there is gender blindness. If this is the case, how can we have any women's issues? Well, you know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's a woman, so she's a woman and she's Hispanic, so that means she can't be questioned. Of course, I'm black and Hispanic, so I guess that makes me equal to a woman, maybe, in terms of gender identity politics, since I have a couple of minorities. I am a couple of minorities, and she's a couple of minorities. I guess that puts us on the same level, so I can question her. But the reality is I'm an American, and she's a member of Congress, which means she answers to you and me, and therefore I can absolutely question her, and I can tell you that I have no idea, and she won't answer my questions. She's avoiding me. She would not answer anything I have to ask, because it makes no sense. Like, I would ask, why must everybody be in a union? She is actively promoting unions. That's just beyond partisanship. Her bill says that everyone should be in a union. I don't know why. She seems to think a union is like the perfect business environment, which is stupid. Stupid. It isn't. But that's what she apparently thinks we were fighting World War II for. We were fighting democratic socialists so that we could create more socialists, if not communists, in unions. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez apparently believes, and therefore she wants to pass a bill, the Green New Deal, to increase the number of unions, to increase the number of socialists so we can have a more communist nation. This is what she's doing. She's wording it better than that, slightly, but that's what she wants to do. I can't wait to see the NASCAR fans, because think about it, guys, and I've been saying this for 3 years. Check back in some of my writing over at the MVOS website, and you'll see that some of my writing, I've been telling you that if you want to go with this whole eco-fanatical viewpoint of the world, and I'm saying that because while we all can agree making the world cleaner and nicer is a good thing, and I don't know anyone who disagrees with that idea, to fanatically say that we have to destroy our country to potentially maybe save part of the world is silly, especially the way they want to go about doing it, because the things that they want to do don't actually make anyone safer. But it just drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts listening to this. I mean, think about it. Why would you be willing, if you're so concerned about money, and we've heard that from Nancy Pelosi, and we've heard that from many of the Democrats, and I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez herself, Carlos, has mentioned how we don't have money for spending on all these wild ideas like a wall, but yet you're willing to spend $7 trillion on this idea. And by the way, let's throw some more facts out there for people. If you really believe that global warming is a problem, then you need to talk to China. You need to talk to China, India, and 2/3 of Africa, the continent of Africa, 2/3 of the nations on that continent, because they produce, each and every one of them, produce more global warming gases and emissions than the United States. It is a fact that the United States leads the world in the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that have been cut and have been reduced. The next closest nation is England, and they are 1/6 the amount that we have done. We are 6 times better than England at cutting greenhouse gases. That is a fact. It is not a feeling, and I know Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez loves feelings, but there is no feeling in this. It is a fact. It is a fact that the United States has reduced the emissions of greenhouse gas over the last decade more than any other nation in the world, and actually several of them combined. That is a fact. But yet, that is not good enough. Somehow we are the bad guys. And it is also a fact that we have seen China by itself increase the amount of greenhouse gases that they are putting out into the environment more than America is reducing its greenhouse gases. Okay? India does about the same. And if you were to combine the continent of Africa, 2/3 of those nations are doing the same thing as well. So we could drop our emissions to almost zero, and it has no impact because China, India, and 2/3 of Africa are increasing their greenhouse gases more than we can reduce. So therefore, global warming is still going to happen. This is part of the reason why I said, when she said, oh, the world's going to end in 12 years if we don't do something, guess what? The world's going to end. Let's have a party. Because China doesn't care. China, India, 2/3 of Africa, and most of everyone else in the world could care less what Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinks, because she's an idiot. And I don't say that much. I don't even call Representative Nancy Pelosi an idiot, because as much as I think the woman's just out of her mind and she says some really dumb things like unemployment will spur job growth. Remember that little gem from 2010? Don't worry, unemployment. We need to increase the unemployment rate, the amount of weeks that people are covered for unemployment, because that will create jobs. That's what Representative Speaker Nancy Pelosi believes. It makes no sense. And again, this is another economics genius here. But even she has never reached the levels of insanity that we see coming from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And I know that people like Citizen Action here in the Southern Tier, the political leaders of tomorrow, which is an offshoot of them, and radicals who are out there to just violently try and change the world, the Antifas of the world, the Black Lives Matters of the world, the far left fringe of the Democratic Party, that these guys, they're all for this stuff. But that's because they don't care. They want to destroy the nation. They're there with Bill Maher saying that we have to destroy the economy so that they can win politically. Now, they're willing to sacrifice people's lives just so that they can have a better they can have a better political gain voting. It drives me nuts. I cannot understand this. It does not make sense to me. It drives me nuts. And that they're willing to throw women under a bus, and they're willing to use anybody and everybody, like they were saying about Tina. Hey, Tina, do you want to join a union? Because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says you're going to join a union, and that's the best thing for you. You will be part of a union. Yay for you. You can't own your own business. You can be part of a union, and that will help the environment. And as a woman, that means you'll be able to get paid more because we helped improve the environment. Oh, and by the way, Tina, you're also going to lose your car. I hope you did know that too. She's going to take away your car. I love Tina's answer. No. What do you mean no? Come on. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's trying to help you. She's a fellow woman, and she's saying that the best thing that you could possibly do is join a union so that they can guarantee how much you will get paid, and they can take away your car, and they'll give you better weather for it. Maybe. Sort of. That's the experiment. And it'll only cost enough money that, they'll just print money to pay for it. So don't worry, get a couple of wheelbarrows so you can carry all the money so you can buy bread every day. Or you can take, the bus to the high-speed train to get to work, if and whenever it were to be created, if they could ever figure out a way to create it without disturbing a couple of squirrels and a couple of trees. That's the thing. It makes no sense. And I'm being serious here, folks. And this is why they took this bill down. Tina mentions they're so freaking stupid. And what is sad is more than one person listens to them. Yes. A lot of people. Apparently, there's enough people listening to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that, she's been elected. And I got to tell you, folks, I have noticed something. Facebook, I do this, pretty much every week. This is the 35th week or more that I've done this Saturday afternoon podcast. And Facebook hates me. They must hate this subject. Today is one of the worst connection rates I have had, and I'm looking at it, and I see that 2.3% of this conversation has been dropped by Facebook, that they're destroying my connection to be able to speak with you, which is really sad. And it didn't happen last week. It didn't happen the week before. On all the subjects I tend to talk about, when I start speaking about progressives, I notice that I have the biggest drops in frame rates and the biggest issues technologically. The censors at Facebook really don't like these subjects being out there. And I notice this because if you notice, and you can look back, I have recordings of everything, all this that I do. And if you check it out over my YouTube channel, you'll notice that, when I'm talking about almost anything, it's perfectly fine. But the moment I start talking about progressive issues, consistently, there is massive problems with Facebook where they start having problems with letting me make these comments and presenting the truth, the reality of these things. So that's something to be kept in mind. And Tina mentions, yes, it keeps pausing every now and then. Yes, it is. It is. And that's not because of my technology. It's not on my system. It's not happening here. It's happening with Facebook. Facebook is doing that. They are effectively censoring and compelling people to not be able to hear what I'm saying. They're removing my ability to use the First Amendment properly. And it only happens when I start talking about sensitive issues for the progressives. When I talk about, if I were to talk about Donald Trump, if I'm talking about any other aspect of politics, I have no problem. I can talk all day and the system has no problem with it. But I start talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I start talking about the Green New Deal, I start talking about how it's stupid and the reasons why, and I start presenting facts that in the bill itself, that contradict itself, that tells you why it cannot possibly work, why this is a pipe dream that is being sold to the public, and all of a sudden my frame rates start going crazy. It's amazing. It's amazing. That I call censorship, because that is a pattern of discrimination against a black man, and identity politics is a big deal. So they're being discriminatory to a black man based on politics, and that's supposed to be something they do not allow. That's supposed to be one of those things that they're against, and yet they seem to have no problem doing it. It's kind of sad. So I'm really upset about this on so many levels. On so many levels, I'm upset about this. It's driving me nuts. Because if we actually stop, and I know the younger generation, they're sitting there and they're saying, well, Mike, you just don't understand. Please explain this to me. Explain to me how destroying every aspect of our society is going to improve our society. Please explain to me how our nation destroying itself is going to improve the planet when many of the nations of the planet don't care. That they don't agree with any of this green energy, New Deal, social experiment. And they're just going full on ahead and making more of the greenhouse gas emissions than we are cutting. Therefore, the net growth is more greenhouse gas in the world. And if you're telling me that if we don't cut that in every nation in the world, that the world will end, then you've already lost. Because they're not stopping. I mean, did anyone cover this in any of these classes? Did anyone realize that the United States is not the beginning and end of this discussion? That we have very little to do with this? We are not, as great as America is, we're not the beginning and end of this conversation. We never were. We can't be. I don't know. But let me stop for a second. I do want to mention something, though. Let me do this. Newsflash. Yes. A bit of a newsflash, sorry. Choking on my coffee. I did want to mention that there is the upcoming CPAC 2019, the Conservative Political Action Conference of 2019. That's coming up down in D.C., and I will be going to there. I will be covering 3 days at the event. 3 days I will be publishing and broadcasting alongside Fox News, CNN, ABC, NBC, the other national news media. And I can say that there is, as far as I'm aware, there is not another broadcast that will be coming direct from a small media company, a non-national media company in New York State, and in particular in the central, the southern tier, the Mohawk Valley, central New York. I'm it. I'm the only person who will be going out from central New York and covering this event live. I will be broadcasting 2 hours a day at the event live, as well as coverage throughout that entire event. No one else is going to have that. No one. So I just want to put that out there, that, your support helps so much, because that's going to be able to give us the food, the gas to get down there, the hotel that we're staying at, paying for some of the equipment. It's a $25,000 cost to be able to do this, which is why you don't see small businesses doing it. And we were able to get a possibility, some help to get out there. We had a lot of help in covering the cost to be able to go to CPAC. But the more important thing is, we're going to CPAC. We are covering this event for all 3 days. We will be there. We will be speaking to some of the political leaders of our nation, and those who plan to be leaders of our nation at every level of government are going to be down at CPAC. And I would advise and ask, if there is something you would like me to ask, say, Ted Cruz, or well, first of all, which politicians would you like me to try and speak with, to have meetings and interviews with? Would it be Ted Cruz, Ron Paul? Would it be Rand Paul? Would it be Trey Gowdy? Claudia Tenney is expected to be there as well, someone more locally known to people. Is there a political leader or icon? Doreen Borelli is going to be there. Is there someone that you would like me to try and get an interview with, so that while I'm at CPAC, so that I can speak about it? That's one thing, and I want to see people answer that for me. I also want to ask people, hey, while I'm down at CPAC, is there a question you would like me to ask? Is there something specifically that you're thinking of that you say, no one has asked these politicians this question, and now that I have a direct contact to someone who will be there, unlike the normal news media who are on a national level going through all of their editors and their directors and their political beliefs, filtering everything so you don't get to necessarily hear what's going on. No, I'm direct, just like I am right now, talking to you, and I'm asking you, if there is a question that you have and you would like me to ask some of these political leaders, let me know. And I will try and get your question to that member of the elected officials or political leaders, pundits, and I will try and get an interview with them to ask them what do they answer to your question, and to get you an answer. That's what the joy of having someone local, the local representation in a major national event. You get to be able to have a more immediate and direct contact. You get to have your influence reflected in what's going on there. You get to be part of it. And I will be happy to represent Central New York at the Congressional Political Action Committee of 2019. And I am happy to say that I am the only one who will be doing that for Central New York, in the southern tier, and for Mohawk Valley. I'm going to be going down there for you guys. Now, I would like to say that at the event, I'll be happy to be finally talking to Representative Anthony Brindisi, except Anthony won't be there. Anthony, a progressive, is not going. He's more likely to be with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and talking about the Green New Deal, which he kind of supports. It's not very clear. At his town hall and his phone call of a town hall, he kind of is in between. He says he supports it, but he doesn't support it all the way. He likes it, but not entirely. I couldn't even say he's standing on the fence on it. He's saying, yes, he likes it, but no, he doesn't like it. He's playing both sides of the field on that. And he won't answer my questions. I've asked for interviews for 2 years now. He keeps promising that he is going to do an interview with me. And for 2 years, he has not done an interview with me. And I am still waiting for him to do an interview with me, which he has promised to do several. I'm still waiting for even one, especially since he won. And his staff are well aware of this. And I've publicly said that to him. I have privately said that to him. And I publicly and privately said that to his staff. But he won't be at CPAC because Anthony is not a conservative. He is very much a progressive, and as a progressive, he has a very different set of values. He will not go to CPAC, so we won't be speaking to him, but we will speak to many, many other people. And I'm looking forward to it, and we will be expecting to be covering President Trump when he speaks at the event. Vice President Pence will be speaking at the event. We're going to be covering that. That would be the second time that we're covering the president as he speaks at an event. Also a first. That is a first that, as far as I am aware of, no individual media company in central New York has covered the president directly as much as I have, because I'll have covered him twice. Actually, that would be the third president that I've covered at speaking engagements. President Clinton, President Trump, and it would be again President Trump. So that would be 3 times that I've covered a president for the southern tier, for the central New York region. And I'm a small company. It's just me. So as a small company, I will have personally covered and directly presented the commentary and speech and actions of the president more than any other news media in the region. And I'm a private company. I'm a small guy. I'm just one guy. So that's kind of good news. I'm glad about that. It'd be nice to see if I get any recognitions for that. We'll see about it. So definitely send me your questions about CPAC. Definitely send me your requests of who I should be interviewing. Your vote and your information matters. And obviously, if we can see a groundswell, I'm going to put out a poll about this, actually. So look for that. And people will be looking to see your answers. I know politicians pay attention to this on a regular basis. I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of politicians and some of the things that are going on, I do want to spend, assuming that Facebook stops cutting me off, I do want to speak about something else, a little more locally, a little more regionally, talking on a county level, on Broome County itself, but also we see this in several other counties. And I have to ask, we're going to see medical marijuana is going to be, for all intents and purposes, that's a reality. It's a conclusion that's going to happen. And with that, we have to ask the question, how's it going to be paid for? Think about it. We have to now retrain all the police officers. We have to retrain all the police dogs. We have to change the law and how it's being enacted. We have to change our facilities to be able to deal with people who are high while driving, which has been an enormous, that's a situation that laws had to be changed in Colorado. And once they started recording the number of deaths created by driving while high, they have seen a skyrocket in those numbers of cases once they started counting it. We have to start counting it here in in New York State. So we have to wonder, how much is that going to cost? And I have yet to hear anyone say it's going to cost X, because here's a great thing. We see that the AIM funding is being cut throughout the state of New York. It's affecting, several thousand cities, including Binghamton, and probably anyone who's listening. There goes again with Facebook. And also probably anyone who's listening to Facebook right now and watching me, it probably affects your city as well. So you've just lost a bunch of money for your city. And you're having an increased cost just for the medical marijuana. And that's going to affect your city. Where do you think that money's coming from? It's going to be coming from your pocket. It's going to be from your taxes. How much? That's a big question. Is it going to affect the quality of work? Is it going to affect the quality of your driving? Is it going to affect the quality of your life? It's definitely going to impact your taxes, so that's going to impact your quality of life. I wish we were able to hear all the answers to that, but we won't. As far as I've heard from County Executive Jason Garnar, as far as I've heard from County Executive Anthony Picenti Jr. up in Oneida County, nobody knows what is going to be entailed in this. They just know it's going to cost a lot. Nobody has a firm answer. That's scary. How about another question? Does anyone have any idea how much the red flag legislation is going to cost New York State? Individual cities as well as the state itself. Does anyone have any idea? Because think about it. If we now have red flag legislation, every single school, every single teacher is now liable for any and every incident that happens in that school with their students. So if any kid goes off their rocker for whatever reason, like in Zlomberg, where they're making this crazy plan, and somehow a teacher does not figure that out, okay, just like in Islamberg, there was absolutely no outward sign, there was no indication that they were building, that these 4 kids in Islam who were planning to attack Islamberg, New York, 4 kids, all of them under 21, creating bombs, which are illegal, regardless of your age. There is no permit. They were making bombs, a completely illegal action. And some of them were Boy Scouts, some of them were Eagle Scouts. All of them were under 21, and nobody knew about it. There was no red flag sign anywhere. And so every one of those teachers for those kids is liable. The school system is liable and can be sued, which would, I'm sure, hurt the property taxes of those cities involved. And those people can be then civilly sued since they missed all the signs that didn't exist. So that's going to increase costs. That's going to be a big thing. And because of that, every teacher will have to report every single incident to the courts. So the courts are going to be overloaded with more cases. And because no judge wants to be the one who says, oh, I didn't allow this red flag action, this warrant to seize firearms, and it turns out to be some crazy incident. So they don't want to be on record for that. So this is why, as far as I am aware, in 8 states over the last decade, 2 decades, there has never been one noted case where a red flag legislation has not gone through. So they'll let them all go through. People will have, left and right, police forces will be overburdened by having to go into all of these houses and all of these residences of individuals that have now been reported, because they must be reported. So they're going to have to go to all of these houses and take everyone's firearms, often at between 5 and 7 a.m. in the morning, which seems to be when most red flag actions take place, which sometimes results in firefights because people think someone's trying to break into their home and take their stuff, and so therefore, they get shot. And the police get shot because it's a normal, natural reaction that at 5 in the morning, someone's trying to break down your door. You're going to tend to believe that it's probably someone, a criminal, or someone doing no good, rather than thinking, it's probably the police. They're probably here with a warrant to take my stuff, because that's not a natural reaction. But that's besides the point. So we're going to see this. And so there's a cost in all the extra police activity, not to include any of the activity that results in death and or any injuries, which the police can be sued for, the state can be sued for. That's also another complication on there. So we have all of this increased activity legally. We have all this increased law enforcement activity all being added on. We have we have major increases here, but what I'm not hearing, the thing I'm not seeing, is how does any of that wind up helping anyone? Because at the end of the day, you're still not stopping 4 kids from creating a bomb that you couldn't get a permit for in the first place that no one knows about. It doesn't make anyone safer, but it will add up costs. And I promise you, start counting between now and the end of June of 2019, we will hit 500 red flag incidents. We will have that number hit. We will exceed what Florida did in its first 4 months, because New York is that hyper insane about firearms. And that is sad. And you're going to see the cost add up. And I will be sending out a FOIA to New York State government to get an answer on this. I will also be sending a FOIA and a request to all levels of government in New York State to ask them to record and identify and provide the number of families that are broken up because of the red flag legislations, because New York State requires that your kids have to be taken if your guns are taken. And we deserve to know how many families have been affected by this and how much that cost is impacting us as well. It's something that no one bothered to ask, and it's a question that Democrats, the progressives, have never bothered to ask. What are the consequences of what they're talking about? It's just like with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. No one asked the question, gee, you mean we're going to get rid of all the planes? We have to get rid of planes, and we have to get rid of cars, and we have to get rid of NASCAR, because you don't want us to have any cars that run on fossil fuels. So we got to get rid of all of that stuff. And no one bothered to ask, well, what happens then? How do people get across the world? How do we cross the oceans? Do you think that anyone else in Europe is going to do that? Because they're not. They haven't, and they won't. Because China definitely won't. India won't. 2/3 of Africa will not. So it will hurt us, but it won't do a thing to them. You're talking about all of the ocean, the tankers across the ocean who are bringing cargo containers, that are bringing on all those containers of goods to America and from America. They have to go. No one's even thought about that. Every single cargo ship traveling anywhere in the world to America or from America, especially from America, they have to go, because they use more fossil fuels than pretty much any other one system does. I mean, it's dozens. I mean, I have an associate who's done this. I think it's like for every container ship that comes and goes, that any one trip uses about the same amount of fuel as 1,000 cars in a month. Think about that. That's how much, and there are hundreds of these ships all over the world right now, and they put out more carbon emissions than all the cars put together. And you're telling me that you want to get rid of all of that? No one's asked the question, how are we supposed to trade if we do not have trucks, and we do not have planes, and we do not have cargo ships? Especially cargo ships. How are we supposed to get things to places? How are you supposed to get food, clothing, building materials? How are we supposed to get these things all over the place if we can't have these emissions? Because you can't run it on natural gas. That has an emission. You can't run it on solar. It doesn't work. You can't do it on wind power. It doesn't work. You can't do it on hydro. It's a boat. You can't do it. So how do you get it done? How in the world do you get, and you can't use nuclear. So how do you get those ships across? I've yet to hear that answer. What, you're going to use algae, which doesn't work? Can't use geothermal. It's a boat. It's a plane. It's not Superman. But I mean, has anyone ever asked that question? And I would love to hear. If someone is aware of the answer to this question, please Inform me. I'm asking the question. I want to know. Like everything I speak about, this is a conversation between me and you, and we're all talking about this. And this is important. This is going to change our lives. Good or bad, this is going to change our lives in America. And I have to ask you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal, says that we would need to get rid of all the planes, the shipping cargo ships, and trucks that transport all of the goods, including food and clothing, that we use to stay alive. We would have to get rid of that. Since you cannot run a plane or a boat on solar or wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, nuclear, or any kind of fossil fuel, how are you supposed to transport goods? This is a serious question. You know, I should have asked it before, but I really am stuck on this. You cannot fly a plane on solar power. You can't fly a plane on wind power. It's not possible. You can't make a boat run on hydroelectric or geothermal. These things are impossible. If you're removing 100%, where is it? I have it here. Here it is. And I want you to see this because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says in her Green New Deal, there it is, C, meeting 100% of the power demands of the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. Let me read that again. Meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources. And I have to then ask, then how do we transport goods to other countries, to the United States, and within the United States? If you cannot use anything but renewable energy, we have no renewable energy source with zero emissions that allows us to fly a plane, drive a boat, or run a truck. You might get away with running a truck on solar. Maybe. That's usually a backup, but maybe you can get a truck to run on solar. Okay. Then how do you run the tanker ships, the cargo ships? How do you fly the planes? It doesn't work. It doesn't. And no one's asked this question. It is a simple, basic, fundamental economic question. And I am asking the woman with an economics degree, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't have an economics degree, and I understand that for basic economic sakes, we have to ask the question, how do you fly a plane? How do you run a cargo ship? How do you transport goods if you cannot use anything that creates a emission? And you must have zero emissions, and it must be renewable, and none of those sources provide the ability to transport any goods. Like food, and I'm not talking TVs, I'm not talking about, Nike sneakers, things that you don't need. No, I'm talking about something very simple. I'm talking about food. How do you transport food and clothing for cold weather, as an example? How do you transport these goods to the people who need them if you cannot fly a plane and you cannot have a boat run? Are we supposed to put up sails? Are we supposed to go back to the Middle Ages and just have cargo tankers floating around the ocean with sails? Is that what they're really asking us to do? To go back to sailboats? Because that won't have an impact negatively on anyone in the world. This is so stupid. I don't know. See, when I stop and I think about these things and I ask these simple questions, and they are simple questions, folks. When you ask these simple questions, you just have to stop and go, none of this stuff makes sense. When you stop and ask the question about the red flag legislation, and all of its consequences and how those consequences are going to affect people, you realize this is a horrible law that doesn't help anyone. When you stop and ask about legalizing marijuana and the impact and the negative consequences of that, it doesn't make sense. It's not a fair trade. Especially when your answer is, well, we're going to make a bunch of money, but we're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to spend a lot of money, and we're not guaranteed that we're going to make the money. Think of the Nano Center in New York, up in Utica. Think of the drone testing center up in Griffith International Airport. Think of every single promise we've been told, like Startup New York, where we constantly are told, New York's going to make all this money, and we don't. Because there is a fundamental flaw in the understanding of economics by the progressives who are putting these ideas out there. It sounds great. I'm sure Citizen Action will tell you that saving the world is absolutely dependent on the United States alone doing exactly what they say. And joining the union is part of that process. How being in a union makes the world cleaner, I have absolutely no idea. I have yet to read a single thing that explains that. I have yet to see a single thing that explains how making the world cleaner allows women to earn more money. I have yet to hear how that comes about. It makes no sense whatsoever. But I can tell you all the things that are negative about it, how it negatively impacts people. We're talking about putting sailboats on tanker ships, and that's going to have no impact on anyone. And that's the only way we're going to get food and clothing transported, which, you know what, means we're not getting as much food. And this is going to be a problem. And they're okay with this because they didn't think of it, because no one has asked them this question, which is fundamental to their plan. I don't get it. We're not being fair to our younger generations when we let them not question these things, when we expect politicians to not have to answer these things, and when the answer by the politicians is that they're going to avoid answering this, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did by removing the Green New Deal so people wouldn't be able to read it like I have and say, hey, this doesn't make any sense. No, if you believe in it, and she thought it was the bill, and she went and said, this is what it means, then stand by it and actually say, okay, and let me explain the answers. She has an economics degree. Let her explain how this economically makes sense. Please explain this to me. Because I have yet to hear a single person even ask the question, let alone attempt an answer. But we deserve it. If they want to take away my freedom to own a business, if they want to take away my freedom to be able to move freely through the country, they want to take away the freedom to be able to travel the world because they're restricting the ability of me to be able to do that, and they expect me to pay significantly, doubling my taxes to be able to pay for this wonderful experiment. Yeah, there goes Facebook again. Yeah, they want me to pay for all this. Then they at least should be able to give me an answer to my question. And they should answer your question. And I guarantee you, they won't. Because they don't have an answer to this. Because no one has stopped to actually think about what are the consequences of what they're doing. And how will this affect everyone? But you know what? One thing I do know is that I love talking with you guys. I love the conversations. I love hearing from Tina and Jeff and everybody, Kelly, and all the politicians that listen to this. I know that they don't necessarily show their faces much because I know that they get a little nervous. But they pay attention to it anyway, and they do listen to the program, and I thank them for that. I want to thank everyone who listens to this, whether you do it while it's live or if you do it after the fact. I love hearing from you guys. I want everyone, please remember. Newsflash. Remember, I am going to CPAC this year, CPAC 2019. And that's because of the help of angel investors. It is the help of everyone out there. that I'm able to get down there. Your help, please make a donation. It helps us to be able to feed ourselves, to pay for the gas down there, pay for the equipment that we're going to be using to broadcast live from CPAC, something that no one else in central New York is doing. And to my knowledge, no individual company, any non-national news media, no one locally is going to be down at CPAC except me from New York. So I'm here for you. Please send me your questions. Let me know who you want me to interview. I will do my best to try and interview them. And we're going to be down there live, getting the same treatment and the same level of coverage as Fox News, as CNN, as the rest of the national news media. Let's take advantage of that. Show your support, and that will help me to get the answers you want. Let me know about it. I look forward to it. I look forward to talking to all of you again very soon. I want everyone to stay warm. It's getting cold again. Be well, and I'll give you more updates very, very soon. Until then, I want everyone to be okay. I'll talk to you soon.